Hi, Drew Tebow. I'm here to give you my initial impressions, because I just watched this film tonight, by Benicio del Toro. It's called Frankenstein. Now, it is what we normally would think a Frankenstein folklore would be. I have never really seen, or I have never really read the Mary Shelley's actual book of Frankenstein. So I'm only really introduced to the films. Um, so that's why I'm going into it kind of like a new age, kind of like just going into it with a clean slate, just what it is, what it is. I'm going to give it a chance. Okay, so I decided to watch it tonight. And, there was a lot of buzz around this film, and there was a lot of people asking me if I had watched it or not. I hadn't watched it yet, but tonight would be a little bit different. My initial impressions are, and I'll go through a little bit more in depth of what I mean by certain things in this film that is actually good, but there's some things that are not very good. One, I think the whole origin story of Victor Frankenstein was really too long. It takes up almost an hour of this whole film. I mean, do we really need to know that much about Victor Frankenstein? I mean, I understand they wanted to build up his backstory, and I get that. I mean, we all know about the whole myth and legend of Victor Frankenstein, who is basically the creator of the monster that we will see later on in this film. But we also know that he's a scientist. We get that. We don't need to go through his whole childhood. We don't need to go through his whole, you know, basically relationship with his father, which was basically horrible. The death of his mother, which I get. I understand that you're trying to lead into this film, or you're trying to lead into his backstory, like he wants to try to triumph over death. But I mean, just I think they take it too long. They take almost an hour to build up just of his own backstory. I mean, you get a little taste of the Frankenstein monster at the beginning when he's trying to get onto the ship, but the whole first hour is about how Victor became Victor. I get it. But it doesn't need to be a whole hour. It doesn't need to be a whole hour. To me, you can almost chop off the first hour of this film, and it's actually a really good film. When you leave this in, and you understand that, Victor is kind of like a sad soul. He wants to try to triumph over death, and I understand that. It's just that it's been known before. We know it before. It's just a little bit long for me. Then we have Mia Goth as basically the love interest in this film. Basically, she starts off with the brother, and then she has kind of like a little fling, kind of with Victor, and then she kind of gets to me in my impression. She gets attracted to the monster, and I think that's what makes Victor very jealous. He's jealous of the monster to a point where he tries to almost unalive him by setting him on fire. The character that Elizabeth in this film is basically kind of like supposed to be, like I said, the love interest, but it kind of winds up just being a little flat. The only part that I kind of was, and I don't mean to say this in this way, but entertained was the saddest part of the film. One of the saddest parts of the film is when she passes away by the doing of, in front of Frankenstein's monster, which, makes him his first form of grief, which, I can understand him taking, very, very much a sad point of view on it. But I also find that, maybe they could have developed her character a little bit more, and going on to why she actually sympathizes with the monster, why she is the way she is. You don't really get much of a backstory except for her uncle is basically, a rich person, and he's trying to help Victor become the scientist and basically evolve his theories to a certain point. Now, we didn't get in this film, the "it's alive" type. We all know that iconic footage of it's alive" type thing. And maybe that was by design. I don't even know if that was in the actual book. Like I said, it's alive" type. And we all know what I'm talking about. It's just, in this film, they kind of do away with that. Basically, this is the part where he gets zapped by lightning, and Victor is basically trying to train the monster to say basically more than one word. He basically learned to say Victor over and over and over again. It wasn't until Elizabeth takes a little bit of interest, or becomes the interest of the monster, that he starts saying more words. Now, like in the original Frankenstein movie that I know of, in the 1932 movie, there is a part in the film where the monster, goes out and finds an elderly blind man, and that's who basically teaches the monster more humanistic qualities. Victor did not really have any ambition to make him smarter than what he was supposed to do. Victor was very frustrated with the monster in this film, where the old man, basically in the original also, basically took it at his own pace, helped the monster become more human, in sense because the blind man could not see what Frankenstein's monster looks like. So he's not initially afraid, and he's not afraid of the monster. So he can basically learn who the monster really is inside first. And I think that's actually a really good, powerful message. Now, this is the image of what Frankenstein's monster looks like. He doesn't have the flat top head. He doesn't have the bolt sticking out of his neck that I saw. He doesn't have basically what you would associate Frankenstein's monster to look like, which might actually be a good thing. Because in the book, I don't think he looks like he does in the Karloff series. I think he looks basically kind of like this. I find that they gave him, like, he has a lot of strength, and he's basically, especially at the very beginning, on the boat scene, where he's basically going through all of them to try to find Victor to do away with Victor. You start to see, maybe that's why they went more of this route here. But he does have a lot of the powers that Frankenstein's monster does have. He's basically, invulnerable of death, that I've seen in this film. He's basically wants to learn things, but is being treated horribly by Victor in this film, and much like the original film also. I think, honestly, they hit the nail on the head with this one, because I wasn't really too sure about them changing the look of Frankenstein's monster too much to where you become unrecognizable. Yeah, he doesn't have the bolts. Yeah, he doesn't have the square top head, and I get that. And I totally sympathize with people who go into it thinking that way. My initial review of this, which I will do a full review soon, I find it's too long. It's about maybe an hour too long. They could have really just done away with the whole Victor origin story. I think that added a little bit too much. You don't really get to the action of what you really want it to be, what a Frankenstein movie should be. It really just does not get to the point in the first hour. I understand you're trying to build up Victor's origin, and I get that, but we want to see more of the monster. We want to see what he goes through, how he becomes. I would like to have seen more footage of him with Elizabeth, why he basically fell in love with Elizabeth, because I think she's the only woman who ever treated him like a human being, other than the old man in the actual cabin. So, as what I was getting to before, I think that the film is way too long. I think that they should have taken less of Victor's backstory and put it more into the monster's development. I think that the monster, I would have liked to have seen more scenes with Elizabeth and the monster corresponding together. It would have made her death that much more tragic, in my opinion. Now that it wasn't, and I don't like the fact that they did not in the original film, in the Frankenstein film. You know, that film was basically, there was a scene in the original 30s Frankenstein where there's a little girl that he meets up with, which I did not see in this film. If I did, I missed it. Where he wants to show his human side, and he does not mean to harm anyone, but he winds up, unaliving a little girl, not unnecessarily. I mean, he doesn't mean to do it. I would have loved to see more of the old man scenes. Basically, the old man basically trying to teach him more. I don't think they did the knife and fork scene, where he's trying to teach the original monster, in the original film, how to use a knife and a fork. I think that there's not enough of the actual monster in Frankenstein, at least this one right here. When he's in it, you notice it. I mean, he's basically beating the crap out of a lot of people. He's basically trying to show emotion that he can, but he doesn't know how. To me, as an all, you really want to focus more on the monster. You want to develop the monster more. And I don't think they did that in this film. Hopefully it'll get a sequel, maybe. But I think they focused too much on Victor. They focused too much on his origin story. And the origin story just kept going on and on and on and on and on, to a point where you're like, shorten it up a little bit, man. You could have just taken a lot of the origin story out of that film. Like I said, you could have cut the whole first hour out of that film, outside of the Frankenstein monster going onto the boat. You could have left that part in. But the whole origin story of Victor is just very, very, very boring, in my opinion. So as a whole, as a movie as a whole, it's okay. It's not mind-blowing. It's not something that, I can't wait to see again. I just don't like the way they developed the monster in here. I just think it's very long. I think they developed the wrong character. They developed Victor more than they developed the monster. And I know Victor plays a good part in the Frankenstein folklore, but shorten it up a little bit. Give the monster more screen time. But that's just me. So, in terms of performance, do I think that Victor, the actor who played Victor, was okay? Yeah, he was alright. He was okay. He wasn't anything that good. But I've seen better. Mia Goth as Elizabeth in this film, I would have liked to have seen that character get more developed. Had more time with the monster. To where, while she does her death scene in this film, I mean, a lot of people will say it's sad on that part. I just think if you had a little bit more scenes with her, with the monster, maybe it would have been a little bit more heartbreaking, a little bit more sadder, in my opinion. Just my opinion. But, like I said. So I give the character of Victor in this film, I would say a B-, because there is so many things that they could have done a lot better. They could have developed his character more with him, with the monster, instead of just doing his whole origin story, which not many people were that fascinated by. I wasn't. I think they could have just cut like I said, they cut the whole first hour out of that film, and it would have been a whole lot better film. So I give him a B-. Mia Goth as Elizabeth, to me, is another character that they could have taken away from Victor's character and developed her character a little bit more. Not that I didn't like her character, I just find that you didn't get a chance enough to know what she was about. You don't know if she's in love with Victor. You give the impression, they give the impression that she is, but you don't really know for sure. I think if she'd have had more contact with the monster, I think her death in this film, which is a spoiler, I don't care. I think it would have made her death that much more meaningful. Now, this version of Frankenstein's monster, the look of Frankenstein's monster, did not bother me at all. It's not the iconic thing when you think of the monster from Frankenstein with the flat top head and the metal bolts and stuff. I find that this is okay. I do, if you're going to do something, and like I said, at the beginning of this video, I did not read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I don't know if there's an actual depiction or a description of what Frankenstein's monster looks like. It's nice to see that it's a different type of basic look. You know, it has like the stitching together of the body parts, which is kind of like what you would expect from a Frankenstein monster type character. As a acting as a whole, the guy who played Frankenstein's monster, I mean, like I said, I think he was done a disservice. He should have been put on film a little bit longer. I think he should have had a lot more film scenes with Mia Goth's character Elizabeth, and maybe developed where, you know, he really was in love with the Elizabeth character. Or maybe she was even a little bit in love with him. I just find that, you know, in terms of an overall performance, you know, yeah, he is a brute. Yeah, he does get his point across. He is, you know, especially at the beginning of the boat where he's beating the hell out of people. You know he's strong. You see a lot of the time where he's injured, where he's bleeding and stuff like that, but he's not like, you know, he's not going to die. He gets regenerated and just wakes up, you know, and I understand that part and I like that part. But I think as a character, they missed a lot, and that might be bad writing. It might just be the writing that was not good. But that's how I feel about the character and the character's design. So as a whole, you know, don't get me wrong. I like a good horror movie. And I know iconic films usually get dumped on by iconists who love the original format, which I always try to give a remake a chance. If it's not good, I'm going to say if it's not good. If it's good, I'm going to say it's good. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe an 8. You know, it's not horrible. It's not unwatchable. It's just, I think they missed the ball a lot with certain characters in here. They overdid the Victor character. They overdid his origin. We get it. He's a mad scientist. He's mad about his mom dying and stuff like that. You don't need to go through the whole stuff with his father not liking him. And we get it. Or if you do, don't make it an hour long. Just on his origin story. That's all stuff that you basically could be developing another character about. So in terms of acting, I give it a B minus. B minus. In terms of visual effects and visually, I would say it's kind of like a yet another B plus, maybe a B plus. I think there's a lot to improve on. Storyline, too much of the origin story. I think they should have toned it down a little bit. Other than that, it's an okay story. They missed a point with a lot of the stuff in here. So my overall grade from A to F, I have to give it a B minus. Mainly because I think that they missed a lot of parts in this film, and the Victor origin story is just too long. So I will do a full review on this film, go by character in the near future. But I needed to give you my miniature review so far. Right now, as I just watched it, it is not that good, but it's not that bad. I would give it like a B plus. So I'll see you guys on the next review.